Hello and good afternoon, and thank you for joining me on my first video that I've decided to upload to my new channel. I appreciate you stopping by today to have a look at this. We are currently sat on the ground in Singapore, and today we're showcasing the Flight Factor A350, which has been receiving some updates recently to make it much more enjoyable as an experience to fly, and we'll also be using some custom scenery brought to us by ACS today. And we'll be flying this A350, 9 Victor Sierra Mike Foxtrot, from Singapore this afternoon to Kuala Lumpur. I decided to do something which could be quite short, and it would give me just an idea of how I can teach this aircraft just a little bit to anybody who may be interested, or anyone who has any questions on how to fly this aircraft, as some parts of the aircraft can be quite complex for some people, and now the aircraft has got to a certain stage where it's now had implementations to allow SIDS and stars, and for you to now properly get the correct weights and stuff on board, and just generally the whole flight dynamic feel and energy of the aircraft just feels much more enjoyable to fly and immersive. It's not finished yet. I believe Flight Factor are working on a version 2 at the moment. I don't think anything's been really confirmed, just a few renders. But at the moment, for what we have, it's a very enjoyable plane. So today I thought I'd share this with you because I know some people are intrigued. So let's jump into the cockpit now, and let's start setting up for our journey to Kuala Lumpur today. Okay, so here we are in the Flight Factor A350 cockpit now. As you can tell, there's been a few changes overall in the designs and textures and stuff included with this aircraft. It has changed over the past few updates, and you can tell that certain parts of the aircraft are looking a bit more we'll say improved compared to previously, because certain textures and stuff weren't existing, and obviously Flight Factor did release some new textures, but I believe there are some people who are still not really enjoying this kind of colour on the dashboard and pretty much on the aircraft itself. So I know that there are replacement textures that you can get on the X-Plane forum, and if you'd like to try those out, by all means please do and tell me what you think. But for the moment I'm just going to keep on the default ones because I actually quite like the colour, to be honest. It's not too bad in my opinion. But enough for talking, we're going to now start up our plane. So the first thing we're going to do is turn the battery on. I'm going to get rid of those annoying master cautions. So, in the Airbus A350, as soon as you turn on the battery, you'll see all of the lights illuminated that state the name off. And it's pretty simple to start up the A350. All you have to do is switch off all of the dialog boxes that say off. So we'll turn off the off on the emergency battery. So we're effectively turning everything on now. Turning the emergency batteries on, battery 2, EMU, galley, and the commercial lights. Then we can go and turn our crew supply on. We'll go to the top here, and we'll go and align our IRS. If it wants to let us do that. You know what? I need to change that setting quickly. If we just turn those off, you'll see that there's a few that say on. Those are because they're actual data being provided to the cabin, so these systems actually stay on and they will turn on automatically as soon as you turn on the battery, so you don't need to worry about those. And here we have our options page on our FMC, and here you will be able to choose all your different options that you need for your flight. So you can choose the default transition altitude if you're flying somewhere else in the world. 5,000 is normally the default for Spain and France. And here in Singapore I believe it's about 11 to 13,000, it's one of them. The FMC will tell us in a minute. but we're just going to switch this to manipulate, so that allows us to actually manipulate our controls with the scroll, and save that. And now we'll start getting the ground power connected. So if you click here at the top, you get a range of options that you'll be able to choose from. You can choose ground services, or choose ground equipment, and we'll select the left unit and the right ground power unit, and you'll see now that it's available here on top. So we're going to switch those two on. The aircraft's going to redo its thing, and there we go. Switch the airflow to normal. We can turn all the packs on ready for engine start, and we'll turn all of these ventilation and temperature gauges up. So again, like I'm showing here, you're pretty much just turning all of the ones that show off to on, and you're making sure that all values and stuff such as these are turned halfway, so you're getting a good variation between the cold and the hot temperature within the cabin. Sometimes you'll notice, especially in the previous version, you would be sitting here in flight and you would constantly get a message here from the PA telling you that it's too cold or something's happened in the cabin, and it's always a nightmare. So we've actually removed that with this sound pack, so we won't be experiencing that today, luckily. But we'll continue now. We'll turn on this generator, make sure that's set to auto. At the bottom here is all of your landing lights. So here you're going to want to turn on the emergency exit lights to arm, just for our flight, and then we'll turn the no smoking seatbelt signs as well. And then we'll put the logo light to auto, and we'll put the navigation lights on. So the navigation lights are on outside now for the ground crew. And the hydraulics we can turn on in a minute. That's the ventilation switches, so we can turn those on as well. Okay, so the aircraft is pretty much turned on now. You've turned on everything that there is, and you'll see that there's still a few things that we need to do because the aircraft is still pretty much in a state where it's waiting for you to tell it what needs to be done. So over here we're going to set up the ground services. We're going to tell it plane is at the gate. We're going to say that the luggage loader is here, the fuel truck is here, and the chocks are here. This is very important when you do this, that you set up your configuration to the way how you actually are. So for example, here we're connected to an air bridge or a jetway, whatever you'd like to call it, and we obviously are telling the plane that we are at the gate, so there's no need to use stairs or a passenger bus because the passengers will be coming directly down the air bridge directly onto the plane. If we were connecting via the air stairs, we would have to obviously de-highlight this option and then select some other options such as the passenger bus and stairs. And you will see if you've done this correctly, because when you come down to the airplane section, press the wrong one there. When you come down to the airplane section and you see the passengers tab, this is one of the pages where you will do your payloads such as the fuel, and when you go to implement it, if your configuration isn't set up correctly in the ground services, it's going to tell you that something isn't configured properly, and that could be anything from the ground services not being connected properly, as I just explained, to the doors not being open correctly. So what we'll do is we'll open one left, as it should have already been opened. Otherwise, how did I get on the plane today? So one left, forward and after. We won't board from the back today because it's not needed. And what we'll do now is we'll quickly get our flight plan into place. So let's bring this up to ARC. This is our FMC here, and on the right you have basically normal procedures, all of these checklists that you can go through. But this is actually the FMS here, and it says at the top here FMS1, so you can actually access it through the and clear the info there. It says GPS primary loss, that's fine. So what we'll do is we'll implement our passengers first. So on board our flight today we have 253 passengers. So let's say we have a crew of 8 today. We have 20 people in first class, we have 30 people and we have 198, so that's 256, and it said 253, so we're just a little bit off, so we just go 195, perfect. So 253 is our passengers, and our weight today is 5,000, so we're going to do forward compartment 1, and you'll see that even just by adding 1 in the forward compartment, we've already got a weight of 2,400. So truthfully, if you wanted to, you could put 2 in there, and maybe we'll put a little bit in the bulk, because the way how it works in the bulk is you're able to give a figure which is a double-digit number instead of 1, and the cargo weight added will be much less than if you were to add 1 at the forward compartment or the after compartment. So we're on 4,800 kilos now, just with 2 in the forward compartment. If I add 20 into the bulk, it'll bring us to 4,900 instead of jumping us up crazily. So we just need 1 more. So if we just go to 30, and then we'll go 40, and then that's 5,000. So that's perfect. So we've got the aircraft set up for the way we need it for today's flight. We have the cargo, and when you're ready, you can press implement, and then we'll go over to the fuel page, and now we're going to tell it the fuel we need. The fuel today is 9249. Our alternative is 2177 kilos. Contingency fuel is 375, which is really nothing, to be honest. APU time, I presume, is going to be around 10 minutes. Taxi time will probably be about 5 minutes. It won't be long. And then once that's all good, see, look at that, we're using 5% fuel. It's kind of crazy. Okay. And then on the cabin side, you can select the cabin lighting here. That tells you the water and the waste levels during the flight. Something just to give you a bit more realism. And then here is the perf calculator, which you can use for your takeoff performance. And this is what we're going to use now for the setup of the FMC. Okay, so we're ready to set up our FMC. So when you're ready and you've been following the steps, we're going to go down now to the 2 screens here, and we'll focus on the one on the left, and you'll see at the top you have some options here, and at the moment we're just going to focus on these 2, and obviously the top one is just letting you know that you've selected FMS1 to utilize right now. And here, when you press active, it's going to show you all the different parts of the FMC that you can access. And I know that some of you are probably going to see some similarities now, because obviously the Airbus technology does, you know, fall over from other aircraft into the newer ones, but obviously the technology is improved compared to some of the other older models. But when you're ready, we're going to select the initial page, and this is where we're going to put all of our data in. And the best thing is you can use your keyboard for this. You don't have to use the keys down here. I mean, you can if you want to, if you want the realism, but you don't have to. You can literally just click, and when you click at the bottom, it will actually say that your keyboard is focused, as you've just seen there. For some reason, it's not wanting to click. There we go. So you'll see there, it's selected as a type box, and it's waiting for me to type in the flight number. So if we type that in now, Singapore flight number 118 today, and we're flying from Whiskey Sierra 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 to Whiskey Mike Kilo Kilo. Oh, hang on, Mike Kilo Kilo. And what we can do is, if we go to route select, and then if you type in Whiskey Sierra, it would actually see, sorry, I should have actually pointed that out before. So obviously in here, when you're selecting your destination and your arrival airport, most people just go onto the flight plan page and start entering all of their flight plan. But if you actually press route select here, it will give you the list of all of the available flight plans that are in your output folder and all of the ones that you can use. And we will choose Whiskey Sierra 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 today because that's our airport that we're taking off out of, and it's the one to Kuala Lumpur, number 4. So just highlight that and we'll press apply. Now that that's entered into the FMC, we'll tell it the flight level that we're taking today, which is 220, which is probably pushing it, but it's a very short flight. Cost index today we'll use 25 due to the time. And then the IRS is now available, so you can actually find out that information, because as you saw above, we aligned the IRS by turning these 3 AD-IRSs on, and after about 8 minutes the systems would actually align here, allowing you to have your primary flight display and your navigation display. As you can see, it's still not available now because we actually haven't aligned it yet. If you go to the IRS page where it says in the options, you'll be able to actually tap Align IRS, and when it gets down to 0, this will become available. This is already on 0, so as soon as I press this, it's going to align, like so. But if it says available in 7 minutes, once you press Align IRS, you have to wait 7 minutes. If you don't want to wait, you can go over to the iPad and you can go to the Options tab, and there is an option here that says Force Align IRS, and that will basically give you the IRS instantly, and you don't have to wait then. So that's always a plus if you're in a rush. But now that the IRS is aligned, we're now going to just double check our flight plan, which as you can tell is nothing today due to our flight time. Now, as I was stating before, in the recent updates that Flight Factor have been releasing for compatibility with lots of different things, especially with Vulkan just being released as well, Flight Factor have now added the ability to use SIDs and stars properly inside the aircraft without having to use, without having to save an actual SID through Simple FMC or another plugin like that. You're actually able to do it fully now in the FMC of the aircraft, and it's quite simple. You just go to the flight plan page as I've showed you. If you don't know how to do that, you can just access it from the top here by pressing flight plan, and then where it says Singapore here, Whiskey Sierra Sierra Sierra, you just want to click that, and then it's going to give you the options here, and we just want to press departure. Now that's going to set us up for our selected departure, which we're going to choose. So we're going to click here, and we're going to choose 20 right. Now the first thing you're going to see when you click 20 right here is that nothing's changed in this box. It still says runway. And I've seen a lot of people try and click in this box until it changes to 20 right. But what you actually don't realize is that 20 right is selected above here in the departure route, so it's actually confirmed. It knows the length of the runway, it knows the course, it knows the frequency. Now it just wants to know the SID that you're going to take. We're going to take the Masbo 4 Foxtrot departure today because that's going to be the easiest way to come out of Singapore, and then we'll probably route direct to, I think it's Samba, and that will allow us to head directly towards Kuala Lumpur then. So our transition today is none, and as you can see, when you select transition, it will give you the list of transitions. If there is none available, it won't show any, so you can obviously de-highlight that. Once you're happy, and it's actually previewed our SID here on the navigation display, so you can see that we'll be taking off, we'll be making a left turn towards Divsa, and then coming back round and yeah, passing 20 right again, but going obviously westbound then towards Kuala Lumpur. But we're happy with that, so we're going to press temporary flight plan, and that's going to give us just a preview of how the flight plan looks now with the SID included. So you can tell that VTK has been added, and then Acoma, Avcar, and we said we were going to go direct to Sabca. So that's something we're going to do afterwards, so I'm happy with that for the moment. So we're going to insert temporary, and you can tell now that our flight plan has pretty much been put in. And if you switch this to plan, you can actually scroll here through your waypoints, and the FMC will actually give you an overview of your flight plan for today, and you can see that we'll be taking it all the way to Masbo. After Masbo there's a discontinuity, and then it wants us to go to VMK. So what we want to do is probably remove that for the time being, because I believe that our arrival is going to have a transition of VMK, so we won't delete it for the moment. When we put the star in afterwards, we should hopefully be we should hopefully have no issues on that. So that's done now, our FMC, and you'll see that actually there's no altitude restrictions or anything at the moment, even though there is, because they have little orange, I forgot what they're called, little orange asterisks, I guess you could call them, next to it, little stars, and a purple one is a speed, it's a speed restriction, so DIVSA is probably stopping us from going over 250 below 10,000, which is normal, and then these are actual altitude restrictions, but it hasn't previewed that yet because the aircraft doesn't know anything about the fuel load or the weight on board, and this is what we're going to do now, which is accessible in the fuel and load page, as I just clicked, and you'll see here you have a lot of empty boxes. The three we want to focus on are the top here, the zero fuel weight, the zero fuel weight center of gravity, and your block fuel. And all of this information can be found in here. Now if you go to airplane again, and you go to passengers, where we have selected all of our passengers for today, you can see that at the bottom we've implemented it, the passenger and cargo is loaded, the fuel is loaded, and it actually tells you your zero fuel weight in tons here and the center of gravity for today's flight. So we can now tell the FMC that. So our zero fuel weight today is 174.9. So we'll put that in there, 174.9. Our zero fuel weight center of gravity is 43%. And our block fuel today is 12.1, just over. So there we go, 12.1 block fuel. And now you can see, as soon as I put that in, this FMC has updated straight away, and now it's given us all of the altitude restrictions because it now understands the weight of the aircraft. And as you'll see here, now we have all of the wonderful constraints. Now we're not actually on VATSIM today, so I'm actually going to remove these. Considering our flight is very short as well, it wouldn't make sense for us just to hold, because truthfully we won't be able to get up to our cruise in time probably. So we're actually going to get rid of some of these altitude constrictions, and as you can see I'm doing it quite simply here through this selection box, which is available from choosing flight plan. If you see a certain waypoint that you don't like and it has a restriction, you're able to click on it, tap constraints, and then here it will give you the speed constraint if there is one, and obviously there is one, which is 250 knots at or below 10,000, which is what we discussed. But the altitude constriction will be in the altitude page, and you can actually tell it, if you don't want an altitude constriction, you just put 0 in the box and that's it. You won't have an altitude constraint anymore. And you can go through each individual waypoint in this list. You don't have to keep going back out to the flight plan and keep choosing constraints. You can just access all of them from inside this box. And then when you're done and you're happy with the actually we missed that one, so maybe we'll do that one. But once you're happy with everything, we can now do the last part of our flight before we start up the APU, which is going to be setting up the takeoff speeds, and this is where we will use the performance calculator. So our runway slope today is going to be 0.0 because I've turned off runway contours just for the moment, because in certain parts of the world there are some issues. And we're going to use flaps 1 today, plus F. It says the center gravity is out of range, out of takeoff range. That is very true. I don't know why it's out of takeoff range, but what's going on here? Takeoff THS for this is 43%. Oh goodness, it's not liking that, is it? Wow. Okay, there's been a little issue with this plane recently. Every single time I've been flying it, it's always been saying slats or flaps not in takeoff config, and it's been complaining about the config trim as well. And it's interesting because I've just started the aircraft up, and in cold and dark the aircraft doesn't know anything about its takeoff weight or anything yet, because I haven't inputted the data. Obviously I have now, so I don't know if that's a glitch that needs to be addressed, but I've only had it recently in a few flights. But it's not liking the flap setting, so if I try 2, it's still not liking it either. Well, that's being a bit of a pain, I'm afraid. So what we're going to have to do is maybe... I'm going to have to do a bit of a guesstimate for this flight, which I don't like to do, but we've already come so far with this setup now that it would be a shame just to waste it for that. And we're not really that heavy today, so I doubt that we're going to need a lot of power. So let's work this out. There's out of range there, so I don't know why the takeoff range is out of range. It's very strange. I don't know why it's doing that. It seems to be a center of gravity issue with the aircraft recently, and I'm not sure why it's doing that. I don't know if it's the payload which I'm being given from my flight plan, which is maybe a bit too much, but we're gonna have to try and work on it. For the moment though, we are pretty much almost ready to go, so let's quickly just put in what I think will be acceptable. Let's flex to about 50 degrees today so you can hear the engines. We'll do a takeoff speed of about, play it safe, we'll do 158, we'll do 162 rotate, and we'll do 167. Now I know a lot of you are thinking it's high, but it's better to do it higher than lower. If I feel the speed is enough, obviously I can rotate, but that's just to give us a bit of time as well to get that speed alive. So we are now ready for our APU start, which we're now going to do. So you look up to the top, I'm going to turn the hydraulic pumps on, that's what I normally do, and then turn the APU on. Wait a few seconds, and then we'll start the actual APU. And now let's pop outside so you can listen. Okay, so our APU has now started up, and we are ready to switch the power over to the APU now. So turn the APU gen off. Now the packs will come into play. I was trying to think what the best way may be there to push out, but I think we should be alright there with what we're doing. So external power can now come off, and we're now going to prepare for departure. Okay, so we're just about ready for push and start. So we're going to just quickly select 12,000 for our departure. The QNH out of Changi is 1207, so the winds have changed a little bit, but it's okay, we should be alright. And the QNH is 1009, so change that, cool. And we are now ready to go. So let's quickly lock the cockpit door. We'll start our push.
Here comes the pushback, light them up.
Start the chrono on that side. Turn on our beacon light. Coming out further now. So something I wanted to quickly show you, because some people are obviously asking about the TCAS system, and obviously you have some buttons here, but it's all actually electronic now when you look at it. And if you come here to the survey section from the drop down menu and you go to controls, you're actually going to see all of the controls for your flight. So we'll actually set 2000 today, and we'll do auto, we'll do TARA, and it's TA only at the moment because we're on the ground, and then we can set all of these to auto. And the best thing is that you select all of these options, and then at the top you have these 4 switches here. 2 of them control the weather and terrain, and the bottom 2 control the obviously the XPDR and the TCAS. And these four buttons displayed here are the ones on the screen. So if I click one here, it's gonna turn on here, if that makes sense. If I turn it off here, it's gonna turn off here, and it's gonna let me know as well. So it's just something for you to know. Normally I turn these on when I'm entering the runway. I guess you can turn them on before, but you just have to make sure that your controls are set up the right way. But that's all good, and I think we can now get ready for engine start. So let's go ahead and let's start number 2. And number 2 is stable, just about. I think we're gonna
just about done here. Go ahead and set your parking brake.
Okay, so the parking brake is set.
And we're disconnecting the tow. Give me just a moment.
And let's start number 1 now. Okay, so our engine start is complete, and we can now do
and we're disconnected. Signal and pin on the right. Take it easy and have a safe flight.
We can now do our aileron test. We'll go full left, we'll go full right, neutral, go full up, full down, neutral, full right, full left, neutral. And now let's select flaps 1. Okay, flaps are armed, speed brake is armed. It says configure the pitch trim, but I'm going to guess that something's happened with the pitch trim today, because something seems a bit wrong with this. I've never seen a takeoff CG that high before, so I think there's something that may have happened there on the passengers or fuel page, so I do apologise for that. I normally don't have this issue, but again, today it's been a bit strange. But anyway, we're pretty much ready to taxi, so I should have turned the anti-skid on quite a while. So make sure you turn that on. It's a little switch just above the auto brake here. And then also if you just click in this box, it's going to activate the RTO for our taxi. Now turn on the taxi light, turn the APU bleed off. Realistically, our cabin is completely full, so we should have the airflow to high today. And we will turn off the APU. Apologies about that, my sound decided to cut on me then, but we will turn off the APU just in a few moments. Probably turn it off now. It's had its rundown, and we're now ready for taxi. So if we advance the throttle a little bit. I could feel the aircraft swaying a lot today, and I'm not sure if that's due to the the center of gravity being completely off with the aircraft, which is a very big possibility. At the moment everything seems fine. I will take you outside and show you some photos and some videos obviously as well. Fortunately the aircraft is extremely loud outside, so I will have to turn down the footage. This sound pack is crazy when it comes to loudness. It can get very intense. So honestly, because there's only 2 intersections here, we may as well just go full length, because why not? And we're going to slow down just a little bit here, because I can tell the plane is wanting to go. Doesn't seem like we have any weather for our departure, so that's always a good sign. Sometimes it can be quite rough, the weather around Singapore, especially at certain times of the year. And here we go, lining up Whiskey 1. Let's turn the landing lights on and the strobe lights. Now I'm going to line up runway 20 right. And we've overshot it once again, because this plane loves to overshoot its turn at the moment. But you know what, that wasn't too bad, so better than nothing, I guess. Cool. Okay, so we'll leave the plane at that, because it's still wanting to move, as you can tell. It's been very strange today. Something's definitely worrying me about the center of gravity of this, but hopefully we'll be okay. I'm only saying this because this aircraft normally never does this swaying motion, so I'm definitely sure that something's gone wrong with the takeoff performance. And let's hope that that isn't the case. Okay, so we're ready to go now. Everything's set up. Even the plane's being a bit strange, but apart from that, we're all good to go. Yeah, so let's make our way to Kuala Lumpur. So it seems like there was something off with the landing gear there when I released the parking brake, so I think that's the reason why it was doing that. So let's go then. And let's bring it up to 40%. And Manflex SRS thrust, ECAM no blue. Or actually it's Manflex 50 SRS runway auto thrust blue. There you go. 80 knots. windy. What's it climbed? You're up. The speed likes to climb on this aircraft, so as soon as I take off, I like to bring the nose at least up to about 15 degrees. As you're going to see, this speed is going to start to come off as we reach about 1,000 feet. So the rate of descent is obviously going to lower. With the aircraft as well, you'll see that you can hold an actual pitch and you don't need to worry about anything. So for example, the actual aircraft's wanting me to push down right now to maintain that speed, obviously. And while maintaining that speed, it wants me to do a left turn while holding the initial altitude. And we're now going to switch to thrust climb. Okay, so flaps are up. I did mention when you select flaps 1 plus F on the Airbus A350, well, on mainly most of the Airbus aircraft, the flaps will actually retract on their own, the slats, and then it's up to you to actually put the flaps up properly so you can climb. It's a very common thing on the Airbus. I do apologise about the shadows as well. I know they're not the best. I've been trying some things out recently to try and make them a bit better. Obviously, Vulkan being released recently, nobody actually has a current preset to fix the textures. But I have been having a little play around to try and fix some of my own. But now all there's left to do is enjoy the climb. Okay, so we're just finishing that turn there, and we've reached cruise already, flight level 220, and as you can see, our top of descent is just over 40 nautical miles away. So we're going to set up our arrival into Kuala Lumpur. You can tell it's a very short route. We've got a bit of weather around us as well, so we're going to keep an eye on that. So to set up your arrival, it's pretty much the same system that we did before, except you're just going to select the destination airport now, which you can either choose here or here. And then we're going to choose the arrival that we're taking. So today we're going to be arriving on runway 32 left, and we're going to be taking the La Pier 3 arrival. So it's the approach. We're going to be taking ILS 32 Lima Zulu, yeah. So 32 left, Zulu, sorry. And then that will be via the La Pier 3 arrival. And then our transition is going to be VMK. And it says via either Burby or Manov. We can probably check that in a minute. Actually, we could probably check that now. Let's have a look. We go to here. Zoom in. See what it wants us to do. No, so that actually looks okay. So if we go there and we go insert, let's just have a look at what it wants us to do. So VMK, and then it wants us to be at 6,000 feet, and then 5,000 through there, and then intercept, and then 3,940 there, 3,500. So I think roughly what we're looking at is to descend to Leuven wants us to be at or above 4,000 feet, and it wants us to be at or above 4,000 feet. So we're going to descend initially to 4,000, and you can see we have certain things in our route now which are showing us that. And our flight plan has updated a little bit now. I can probably show it like that just to give you an idea. We'll also set up our arrival information. So if we go to Perth, we can go to the approach page. These pages here all have different significant levels that you can obviously use them for. So obviously the takeoff page we use to do our information. The climb page gives you just an idea of what you're using. We were using a D-rated climb, cost index 25. At cruise it just tells you the cost index expected and some of the information that you may need, like your optimum flight level, how high you can actually go. And then you have information here on your descent. And then obviously here, the two pages, the approach and go around page, very handy. And here is obviously where we'll have to put in our information for our arrival today into Kuala Lumpur. So the winds are variable at 2, which is good. So we can just say 0 at 2. The outside air temperature is 29 degrees Celsius. And the QNH is 1008. Do a radial altimeter of around, I haven't checked the charts, but let's just do 400 feet, keep it safe. Let me clarify, I have checked the charts, but I haven't checked the actual charts for the minimums altitude for this runway, but I'm sure it won't make too much of a difference. But now we're pretty much set up for arrival. Last thing would be just to set up the auto brake, which you can do here by using the inner wheel. Obviously you can see there's 2 here, and you just want to use the one at the back. And you'll see as you start to scroll upwards, you'll see that the options start to come available here now. So we've got brake low, and then you've got brake 2, you've got brake 3, brake high. So you've got quite a few options. We can probably go for brake 2 today. I think that will give us enough to get us on the ground. And anyone who's flying this aircraft and struggles looking at displays like this, and you'd actually like to see the display for yourself, you can actually click on this on the display, and it will bring out an actual 2D panel for you, and it obviously gives you a bit of a better insight if you prefer that. And obviously when you use the screens and stuff, it will change in accordance with how it should. Okay, so we're just about ready to start our descent now into Kuala Lumpur, and as you can see, if I bring the navigation display in, you can see we're just about 5 nautical miles away from top of descent. So I would say this is a pretty good time to just bring your dial down to 4,000, and if you click in the top, it's going to activate the descent for us. I tend to start the descent 10 nautical miles before, so it allows the VNAV to basically start off at a slow descent at about 1,000 feet, and then when the VNAV picks up, it will then gradually increase its descent until we get down on the ground. Because sometimes when you start your descent, when the top of descent is passing your aircraft on the navigation display, the rate of descent can be quite dramatic because the aircraft is in a managed descent when you push it into this selected descent mode. So the aircraft is going to descend itself as quick as possible to maintain that descent profile. So it's a bit easier for the pilot if you take that step just beforehand and you give yourself a bit of room to start your descent, and when the aircraft is comfortable with the VNAV path, it will slowly, as you can see now, the green circle has just started to come down, and this is our VNAV. for runway 32 left. So as it slowly starts to come down to the middle, the aircraft's rate of descent will decrease. Sorry, the rate of descent will increase, and you'll see that the engines will actually probably idle a bit more as well. Right now they're maintaining about 20%. If we pass Masbo, it's about 40 nautical miles till VMK, and then after that it's straight in to our approach phase, then into the runway. Again, like I said, not a very long flight, this one. It's quite interesting that they operate this flight on an A350 Singapore, but I'm not complaining. So we're well into our descent now as we continue through flight number 130. We're going to be changing to our QNH in a second, and we did set that up in the approach page, which is 1008. So we can probably set that now, to be honest, because we are in our descent mode already, so we'll switch that. So we are passing 9,000 feet now. We've gone through 10,000 feet, and we should have turned the landing lights on and everything by now as such, and pretty much everything, like I said, is set up for landing. This is a pretty straightforward approach into Kuala Lumpur. This is why I decided to do this, because anyone who's following this flight, it's quite a simple route to do, and it's pretty much a straight in arrival. And you can see now that we're just over 30 nautical miles away from the runway now, and with 35 nautical miles according to the FMC. As you know now, and as the FMC knows, because it says now it's replaced the airport with the runway at the end saying 32 left, so it knows our configuration, it knows we're coming into land 32 left. And some people who have questions about the ILS information being inputted onto this aircraft, 9 times out of 10 it's automatic on these type of aircrafts, because obviously it's all computerized and it's available through the LS display. When you click that, will basically give you an idea of your instrument landing system. It'll give you the frequency, it'll give you the diamonds. Well, obviously it'll give you the diamond display. You won't see the diamonds yet, maybe because we're too far out, which is normal, but we will start to see it in a minute. So the aircraft speed is coming down now as we enter our final approach into runway 32 left at Kuala Lumpur. You can see that the arrival pretty much takes us straight in. We've still got about 20 nautical miles to go. This aircraft does tend to slow down quite quickly in some situations, and considering effectively we're quite light because of the distance we took today, we are going to use that to our ability today. Mainly everything is set up for our arrival though. You can tell all of the information. Fuel load is fine. That's our estimated fuel on board when we land is 8 tons. There is a wind page as well that I forgot to explain to you, and you can basically have a company wind request from Active Sky. It's a bit strange how it works because it puts in all of these numbers, and it could obviously be done a little bit better. I hope maybe that's something they work on in the future. We're approaching 4,000 feet. The localizer and the glide slope is now alive. We're still about 18 DME out, so realistically what we can do here is we can try and keep our speed as much as possible, and then when we do get closer onto the glide slope we'll reduce the speed, and then hopefully just as we get down to that reduced speed the diamond should kick in then and we should be on the approach. Just to confirm, I haven't actually selected localizer yet. I know we're completely, well, we're not 100% on the glide slope or on the localizer, sorry. That's just because the waypoints are off a little bit, but you can tell pretty much we're bang on now. Our speed has now gone down to 138, so that sometimes happens with the Airbus. So if you actually pull out the speed, you're able to manage the speed yourself. But as you can see, the diamond is starting to come down. So we're going to do 180 knots. We're going to arm the localizer. And once the localizer is armed and we have been localized, you can now press the approach course. Now I'm not going to put flaps yet, because if I put flaps the aircraft's going to spool up really quickly, and I'd probably just prefer to do flaps when the glide slope kicks in. So when we get to 180, and as the speed is decreasing, obviously this is going to take longer because your rate of speed is decreasing. But here we go, glide slope is coming in, and if it can just occur just in time, the engine should only spool up just a tiny bit, and that's what you want to try and aim for on the descent, because sometimes people will reduce speed too much and you'll be holding 70% N1 for 2 minutes while trying to maintain the glide slope. Flaps 1, and it's just not very helpful for you as well when you're trying to do the approach. Now selected flaps 1 though. Our speed is coming back up a bit, so we're going to go flaps 2 and we're going to bring it down to 160 now. As you can see, our speed is still a little bit high, which I don't really like, but the good thing is we've still got 8 DME. And knowing that flaps 2 has come out now, I know that that speed is going to slowly retract. And when we put the landing gear down in a second, that's going to cause a lot of drag.
2,500.
2,500 with 7.5. Let's do gear down. And as you can see there, the speed is starting to drop straight away. And when it gets below 180, normally the aircraft tends to stabilize its speed then a bit better. And obviously, we're not on full flaps yet.
2,000.
Check. So we're approaching now, so let's go flaps 3. And for people who don't know, you will have obviously a VREF set up in the aircraft, and you may not know what that VREF is, but the aircraft does. So when you're confident and you have no more speed restrictions on your approach, you can push in the speed and it will now go down to your managed VREF. That means we can now select flaps full, and that means we are now ready for landing, because landing gear is down, landing lights are on, auto brake is armed, speed brake is now armed, landing gear is down 3 green, and the flaps are full, and we are ready for our landing now into Kuala Lumpur. Okay, we're approaching 1,000. Now I'd normally hold it on the autopilot, but I could probably take that off for you, and we'll try and hand fly this approach into Kuala Lumpur now. I gotta say, the scenery's just loaded in and it looks superb. You've really done a good job with this. For anyone asking, the performance is much better here now than what it was before.
500 above.
500 with 400
minimum.
above, and that's minimum to continue. We're a little bit above our glide slope apparently, we're a bit too high, but according to the Pappies we're bang on, so probably gonna keep that for our visual reference, and we'll be going right to the end of the runway today, so I'm not really worried about runway length right now.
100, 90, 80, 70, 60, 50, 40, 30, 20, 10.
And this is going to be a bit of a floater. Oh, and we're down. And apparently we've got a master caution, which the plane loves to give me every time I touch down. And that's reverse thrust engaged. 80 knots. Decel. 60 knots. And you're braking. Please be quiet. And ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Kuala Lumpur. Probably stop our chrono now, which was 39 minutes and 39 seconds. Isn't that good? Right, so we have made it. So, vacate left here. Again, the turning of this aircraft loves to be superb. Let's turn the strobe lights off. There we go. We can probably turn a bit of the console lights on now. It's getting a bit late. Which is a bit better. So yeah, we're just going to taxi all the way to the end to one of the alpha gates this evening. I'm actually quite impressed with this airport. It does seem very nice scenery. Oh, and now that we've also landed, we can probably turn our weather off. And it's probably going to complain because we have the weather radar on there and we have the terrain radar, so we can turn that off. As you can see, the aircraft is handling the speed much better. It handles more like a Dreamliner now that we're on the ground, because of the way how the weight of the aircraft has decreased a bit. So if we were to make a right turn there, that's going to lead us to nowhere. So if we go straight ahead here, we should make a right turn, and then we're going to aim to park on one of these 4 gates here, which is the alpha gates. I believe is where everybody normally parks now at Kuala Lumpur. It truly is a very nice scenery though, really well optimised. The mountains in the background, they're superb. Okay, so we've got Alpha 12 here, got Alpha 10, Alpha 8. We started on Bravo 5, so maybe we'll go on Alpha 8 today. Oh goodness, we may have messed that up. I'm actually struggling to turn the aircraft at the moment because of this issue with the centre of gravity, so I do apologise. I am trying the best I can to have a fight with this overton plane. It's not going very well though. Actually, oh, did we get it? Okay, parking brake is set, and yeah, we're here, cool. So we can now turn off the chrono. So it was 1 hour and 3 minutes gate to gate, and it was 39 minutes. And yeah, I may show you the replay quickly before we shut down. Okay, so that was actually not a bad landing. We've arrived now, as you saw, on the gate, so we can now go to ground equipment and we'll connect the ground power. Turn off the taxi light, don't want to blind the ground crew. And then when you're ready, we'll shut number 1 and shut number 2. Turn off those. Shutting down. Turn the fuel pumps off. Actually, that's the hydraulics I keep turning off. When I keep saying it's the fuel pumps, this is the fuel pumps. And yeah, we can turn that to low. And as you can see now, you see how those two are actually on because they're connected to ground power. But if I was to turn both of these off and I go outside, you're now going to see what I mean. The left aileron is now moving downwards in the down position, and this one still remains on because the power is still connected to the aircraft, so it will always have power until I turn off the battery, of course. But now that the engines have depleted, you can turn the beacon light off, and we are hoping that the jetway has connected. If not, we'll just go into SAM and let's have a look. Yes, so we can choose, so we have two. Oh, so we can actually do a dual gate setup today. So if you click on this one, Lima Foxtrot 1, it's not wanting to show us which one is which. Oh, there we go. So we want to connect that one to left 1, and we want to connect the second one to left 2, as such. There we are. Now you can see the jetway is starting to move. And there we go. Our jetways are now connecting. We can obviously again tell the aircraft we're at the gate. We have a luggage loader. We won't need a fuel truck just for now. We can just tell it the basics that we've done. And that's it. We have officially done our first flight in the A350. I want to thank you guys for obviously sticking along and watching the video. If you did, I do appreciate it. took me a little while to get everything set up, and I will try and reflect on some of the things to make it a bit better in the future. But again, I do hope you enjoyed it. I will try and add some more content very soon. I've got some other planes that I'd like to showcase to you guys, including the Magnite 787, which has been receiving a lot of updates recently, and it's getting really fun to fly. So hopefully I'll be able to showcase something in that soon. But for the meantime, thank you very much for watching, and take care until the next one.